Arcing 7, this one is a personal before it, whatever you got. What the fuck is this damage?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Standout series, where we're continuing through the Eternal Palace, which I assume many of you are probably progressing through who are fans of the channel, because you're raiders more than likely, or you're curious about these fights. And of course, the aim of the Standout series isn't to go over the boss mechanics and the guides. That's left to other people. If you're doing this fight or coming up to this fight, you'll no doubt have some sort of system in place. But more to look as to the personal things that you can do as a player to make the fight far more successful. So we've looked already at the Abyssal Commander Savara. A lot of you progressed really easily after that, actually. Like, the feedback from that was like, okay, I was waiting to be told, and then you told me just go and do it and announce it, and like everything went way easier. Like, I barely ever die at that fight now, and I'm actually more annoyed at the guys who aren't doing it. Yes, that is generally what will happen. First of all, an apology for yesterday. So the workshop is back. We did the workshop yesterday, but as I'm very much rushed at the moment. I'm going to be going back to America in the next few days here to take part in an event. I'll have more details on that soon, but it means I'm kind of tied for everything. I'm really struggling for time. So that was a stupid mistake with the Discord sounds and stuff yesterday. It was just an elementary error. When I checked the video before I uploaded, of course, I check all the sounds in sync and things like that, but I don't watch the whole thing, and I missed. My apology. So sorry. It won't happen again. It's sloppy stuff. Anyway, Orgozoa. So what's fun about Orgozoa? And you also notice I am healing here. Yes, I am healing here. So I generally do heal for my guild, specifically Mythic Plus. I don't really enjoy my Moonkin in Mythic Plus. It's a bit better now with the essences, but typically speaking, I like to heal my Mythic Pluses. I don't enjoy Guardian Druid at all. So when they were needing a 5th healer, I got whispered before the raid, actually. My guild is usually very organized on these things, to say, can I have my healing stuff ready if we hit Orgozoa? Now, I was in Germany at the time for the Race to World First, which actually proved to be super helpful, because I haven't raid healed progression since vanilla. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I did start my WoW life as a healer when I became a raider. I was a holy priest. Well, actually a disc priest for a while, actually, for power infusion. But it was way back in Classic that I actually did progression raid healing. And that means I'm woefully behind the times when it comes to actually doing difficult content. Well, of course, I've produced healing guides for people to get started with over the years. But in terms of being in like a really tight progression situation, I haven't done it. And as many healers will know who have done this fight, this is about the most brutal fight that you can heal inside of the Eternal Palace. It doesn't get much more awkward than this, although personally I kind of think Queen's Court is a far more brutal fight, and I actually rate Queen's Court as the most brutal fight that's in the raid. From my personal standpoint, I know people will disagree, but that's how I feel about it. But so that was a pretty heavy task, was to get into here and not only switch my role from DPS over to healing, and then learn how to manage the Resto Druid in this scenario. I mean, I have healed, when I say progression healing, like first kill healing, I have healed things like Conclave, Mythic, and things like that. I have healed Mythic encounters in Battle for Dazra Law, but it was like on the farm kills. One of our healers wasn't needed, or didn't want to raid, or didn't need loot, so can you heal for this one? I've done that, but you're basically being carried by the experienced healers there. Now, I did have one advantage here, is that sat next to me while I was doing this was Method Kona, who some of you will know is Method's primary Resto Druid. So Kona was sat next to me, and I literally had him with me and went through my gear and essences, because I had, of course, not researched essences or anything like that in order to do this. Now, this is a farm kill, so I've healed this fight several times. I did heal the first. I've killed every kill our guild has ever done at this fight. But you will get this different perspective here on healing. And as this is considered to be really the healing fight, I think it's probably more beneficial that you actually have this point of view, as the DPS's job here is not particularly tricky. It's to blast as much damage, kill the ads, and interrupt in the second phase. Like, nothing particularly tricky goes on here with the DPS. So how can you stand out at this fight? Because overall, Orgozoa is just brutal. It's a brutal healing fight for the most part, and a brutal DPS check. It can't be underestimated of what you need to do here. Well, it's actually very simple. The biggest thing that causes problems on progress on this fight is this here, this arcing current. You can see here an arcing current. Now, arcing current is something you deal with in heroic, but it's nothing compared to mythic. Like, it's a joke compared to mythic. So as a brief understanding of why this is important is you'll notice members of the raid are debuffed with this incubation fluid. You can see these blue markers on the raid frames, and this is randomly applied. You can see the timer is coming in here in about 11 seconds. It's randomly applied to like 3 raid members every time it's cast, and ultimately the boss is designed so that once it hits 40%, I believe, is when it transitions. When it hit 40% and goes downstairs, the entire raid essentially will have incubation fluid. Now, incubation fluid does 2 very important things. One, it hurts like a son of a bitch. God damn, does this thing hurt. It really, really hurts. And also, when Arcane Current comes out, it's going to zap everybody with incubation fluid. And if there is anybody stood near you in a very small radius, then it's going to apply incubation fluid to them, even if they don't have it. And it does a tremendous amount of damage should you link this. So a big portion of this fight is the ability of the raid to be super bunched up. As you can see, we're all bunched up like underneath the boss. The entire raid is here. And the entire raid is going to stay there for maximum healing. But when this Arcane Current comes out, the whole raid needs to expand very, very quickly and then collapse back into this portion. All the while maintaining this DPS and healing check, which makes it very, very awkward. And the biggest thing to do to stand out here, and that you must do, certainly for raid leaders out there, is you absolutely need to drill so hard into your raid team that when they spread for Arcane Current, as you can see, look at the guys moving out now. You can see some people already get in position. Is that spot is always the spot you use. Always. 100% of the time. And that means even to the point that if I move out to my spot, so my spot is like back here, just behind the Demon Hunter and Warrior raid frames. When I move to there, I am standing fucking still. That is my spot. And it is my spot now until the end of time. That's it. That is it. And the reason is, when I'm going to move those few steps so that I'm not going to AoE everybody and do this chain lightning effect. And then I need to heal you. And the other guys are going to be, I need to DPS here. All this is going to happen, which means that if I'm stood here and you hit me, you fucked up. Don't you dare fucking turn around to me and say, well, I was running out, but you were in the way, so you should have moved. Fuck you. That's my spot. We did this on pull 1, 2, 3, and 4. Everyone found their place to be. This is my place. Now, in the early days, where like earlier in the fight, where there's like 1 or 2 incubation fluids, you can see here it's just a Holy Priest and a Rogue. Sure, you can go into somebody else's spot because, of course, if you don't have incubation fluid, you're not going to spread out for the Arcane Current because you're all going to be bunched at the boss doing damage, right? And that should be the safe spot for the people without incubation fluid. However, once multiple people have it, unless you are some Mr. Shit, hot, shit, quick guy. Now, you notice there, like, Smite is moving to here. I guarantee you as we move through this fight, Smite is always there. It's as simple as like he is always there. And he's going to stay there forever. You can see move out and then move back in to get this healing going. So this is like the safe spot for this Arcane Current. But once this gets going and we have lots and lots of people with it, as soon as skip till even I have it here. So you can see the entire raid ends up with this thing. This means that if you are still sort of like, I'll find an empty spot, which is the worst thing you could possibly do on this fight, is like, I'm going to find an empty spot. I have incubation fluid. I'm ready for the Arcane Current. Your raid leader's no doubt going to be calling it, or someone's going to be calling out saying, it's coming. And then you're like, I'm going to squeeze that little bit more damage and then I'm going to find an empty spot. If you're of that mindset, no, not going to work. Absolutely not. You can't do that. There's no way. It has to be that spot. There is a weak aura here, which I believe you can get off Wago. I might try and find the link if I can, which is this one here. You see, this is the Arcane Current weak aura. So it's a circle showing red means bad, green means good. So there's my spot, like I told you. And I'm going to move to there every single time, and that's where I'm going to stand, because look at how much damage the raid has, right? If we go back to here, there's the Arcane Current. There it is. Look how unhealthy this raid is. I need to heal. There's nothing I can do. I can't start adjusting and shifting my position in order to help people. And the same with the DPS. It's like, I'm going to move to here because that's convenient for my classes, and this is what you all find out in the first place. So you're probably asking yourself, well, how do I find my spot? That's what you're doing like pull 1, 2, and 3, is you find your spot. This is where I can comfortably move to with my character's abilities to move. Everyone has different ones. So Moonkins can just like disengage out. Mages can blink. See, all things like that. I moved to my spot. And you see I didn't move here. In fact, this is my fuck up. 100% my fuck up. I'm slightly too far. I should have been here. I was slightly too far, but I'll be honest with you, I was super stressed out. And you can see it causes so much damage because this is my mistake. This fight is very stressful on me. Honestly, it's really, really stressful. So I usually come to about here, like I said. But I went a little too far and notice the DPS aren't moving. Yeah, that's his teleporter. That's his spot. Right? The Warlock here, I'm not sure if it's Cloggy or Zagan, but that's their spot. Like, I'm not fucking moving. Like, you shouldn't be there. I shouldn't be there. He's right. He's absolutely right. It's no case of, well, can you move back a little bit? Because, no, I made the mistake. This is a fight that needs to be done this way because the damage is so intense. So, and again, I stood still. I just had to take it on the face. I was like, okay, this is the way it's got to be as we regroup and get back into this as he transitions into the next phase. Now, things get a little bit more. Luckily, no one died there, which would have been absolutely my fault. But now we're going to move down to the next portion of the fight where things... It's kind of an easier phase, but at the same time, it happens much more quickly. So it's a more intense phase than even the first phase. The first phase kind of gradually builds up to this, which means, once again, you need to find your position in this area. Now, depending on how you position Orgozoa here, this could be a little awkward. So the healers typically will run down. There's nothing much happening. This is where we're going to try and get our mana back. You'll notice the healers are all sleeping and getting our mana back. So wonderful opportunity to do this and get ready for the continuation of this fight. Now... This gets a little trickier because now you have an extra debuff to manage on top of the incubation fluid. Luckily, it does remove everybody's incubation fluid, but it's going to, as you can see, the timer's coming in here. It's going to reapply it. Now, the extra debuff you're going to get is the spear. I believe it's a spear or some sort of shock thing. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't care less what it's called. But it does leave a patch on the floor when it gets thrown out. I believe it is a spear. And then what you're going to have is people removing space to move. Removing space to move around, which makes things much, much trickier. And especially because, and this is why progress can become a little frustrating. I will be honest with you guys. This was the most frustrating fight my guild has dealt with. Maybe Zakul was up there as well. But there was a lot of tension in the raid this night. My guild is really relaxed. Really, really relaxed. A lot of fun, a lot of light-hearted conversation going on. A lot of experienced raiders who are just kind of happy to be raiding together and having fun. But this fight really frayed some edges. And there was a tense atmosphere, even on farm kills of doing this fight. And it's kind of because a lot of that kind of comes down to me. One, if some people do start moving around and being in the spot that they shouldn't be or they weren't last week, then you get frustrated with that. You're like, just go where you were last week. And it might be a case of that person didn't get what they would consider to be a good spot. Because that's something that will happen, right? It's not a good spot, so I'm going to try and move it. But that spot, the other spot you want, has probably already been taken. It's kind of a first come, first serve basis, I'll be honest with you. Unless you speak to that person, it's like, you know, can you shift over a little bit? And they'll occasionally be like, well, I can't because I've got this guy next to me. That's going to happen, and sometimes you kind of have to accept that. But trying to work around each other or maybe looking around, or even something that's becoming more and more common is watching the video back and seeing, is there an empty spot that I'm not aware of that might be on the other side of the room? And I'm going to claim that spot now. That can happen. But when phase 2, although it's easier, so to speak, it's easier to deal with. It's far more intense. Obviously, it's 60% less HP than you've dealt with in phase 1, but it really front loads a lot of stuff, so it's very brutal. And on top of that, you don't get to practice it a whole lot. Now, not getting to practice things a whole lot can cause problems on its own. This is why fights that are really long, but stuff doesn't really happen till the end, can be some of the most frustrating bosses to progress, because nothing really happens. Like, it's deadly all the way through, but nothing interesting and engaging really happens until like 30%, 10%. There are several fights that are like that, which are very irritating. And you just want to practice that last phase. Kill Jaden would probably be the most apt example of that people would know of, because you don't get to practice the pillars and dealing with the orbs until you go through all this other stuff. Then you get to this new phase where the whole fight is different than you've dealt with before, and you want to learn that phase. But getting to that phase in itself is a huge challenge. So in this fight, it gets messy. Certainly your first kills. Some of you might expect that, oh, we got to the next phase, it's kind of easier, we should kill this pretty quickly. And instead, you end up like wiping quite a few times here, because people are having to learn a whole new fight that people are actively screwing up. It comes down once again to standing out and trying to make things as good as possible, where we infer to ourselves 2 rules. You can see these patches are now starting to be dropped. Shocking lightning. I think I can't remember what it's called. Aqualance. That was it. It's not a spear, it's a lance. Aqualance. So how do you deal with all of that I've just said? Well, first of all, we do the first thing we talked about. We do what we talked about in Lady Ashvane, and that we talked about during the the workshop that we did there, is that we assume we're going to get every debuff. Right? Aqualance is now on Xanos, and you can see what's going on here is plotting this here. Now, I guarantee if I skip to later on, it's starting to spread out quite some, right? It's starting to spread out. In fact, I think we just had an arcing, so I'm going to go back, and you can see the room is starting to become a little bit more encroached around us, which means people are having to funnel out. So if we turn around here, I'm just doing my tranquility. You can see there's actually a path created now for people to come out with the arcing lightning, meaning that space is kind of going to funnel and then spread, and that makes it a little difficult to manage here. Luckily, it's a faster phase, like we're already at 13%, so it doesn't become too much of a problem. But what you will find, certainly on progress, is people are going to start dropping these patches here, here, and here, purely down to panic. Purely down to panic. You're going to have someone who confuses Aqualance with Arcing Current or something like that, or they'll just get that pop-up that's like, dun-dun-dun, you know, if you got a boss mod on or something like that. It goes, dun-dun-dun, you have to do something. And they're not ready for it in any way, shape, or form. And they're going to panic, and they're going to have to struggle with what to do with this thing. They're going to be like, and they'll just drop it in a really horrible spot. Our simple counter to that is we always assume we're going to get Aqualance. Always. We assume it's going to be us. And in fact, we change our mentality of this to be, I hope it's on me, right? That's where our mentality comes from. This is, I hope this is on me, because I know I'm going to be able to deal with this. You can see I did a little shimmy there, because again, nothing's really set in stone in this phase. It's very, that's why it can be kind of frustrating. It's very, it's a case of not everybody has to get incubation fluid in this phase. Not everybody has a set spot. So it kind of gets a little bit like, ugh, as the boss dies here. But it's something you need to get into the attitude of, is every single Aqualance will be on me. Every single one. Where am I going to go? I'm going to ask you now. This is what the screen I'm presented with. Aqualance is going to hit me. Where am I going to go? Well, I'm going to come probably over here or over here. This looks good. And I'm ready for it. Dun-dun-dun! I'm going there. I already know where I'm going to go. It's totally fine. An incubation fluid, I know where I'm going to go. I'm just going to run back. I always go early. A little tip for some people there is I go early. You can see when I did the trank here, if I come to this point here, is when it gets to phase 2, and I don't have this like set in stone position, which I do have the benefit of in phase 1. Again, trying to clip the barrier there while not taking the damage. It's a case of, look, when I leave at like 6 seconds or 4 seconds remaining on arcing. You can see I'm going to go. Yep, I'm getting out there way before it casts, because I'm going to run out and I'm going to start casting heals and tranking, and I'm going to let everybody else deal with the arcing there. You can see it just spread out. It's all good. Get back in. It's very advantageous, I find, for healers to get out way earlier and get ready for the arcing, so you're not having to move. It's better for other people to move around you, is how I find, as they find their spot. But just assume always, every single Aqualance will go on me. And then you will have that attitude, although you might be a case of, that'll fuck my DPS, right? It really doesn't matter. What, you're going to beat the Shadow Priest here? I don't think so. You see, again, moving out early and then adjusting myself slightly just to make things easier. Again, this is a different phase to phase 1. Phase 1 is like, fuck you, that's my spot. Fuck you. In phase 2, you've got to be more accommodating, but there's less people with it, so it's kind of okay that you could deal with that scenario. But be aware, like, Aqualance, where am I going? Don't look confused. Don't be stuck and be like, ugh. And then just apply that to literally every debuff you ever encounter in raiding. What if it's on me? So Queen Ashara beckons, for example. A lot of people get this idea of hoping it's not them. And like, I hope it's not on me. No, instead, hope it's on you. Hope it's on you. There you go. Nice 60k HPS from the alt healer there. I'm fine with that. Thank you very much for listening, guys. I hope that helps you out with your Orgozoa progress. Very, very simple. Set in stone, and then be a bit more accommodating in phase 2. But with the Aqualances, assume it's you. Plan where you're going to go. All the time. Like, forever. What else have you got to think about in this fight? You might have to interrupt a mob every now and again. Other than that, Aqualance, it's me. Where am I going to drop it? Where's the best place for everybody else to not fuck them with the Arcing Current? Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your Orgozoa progress. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.